I can't really tell which video clip you're looking at, but so it's basically like a convention center, the building that we're in. So there's where we came in, or where I came in, was kind of up on the upper level, and then you go down, and there's entrances for everyone, and they're dragging luggage, they're dragging bags, they're dragging igloos. They're there doing 5 to 6 hour shifts, and yeah, I mean, they were taking those items in with them into the clear glass windowed room that's to the back, and that's the area I couldn't cross into. So we weren't able. There we go. So that glass area to the back is where they would go through to go in to count the ballots.
Right.
And so this front area is the lobby area, and they would come in from outside and bring those items into that secure area that's in the back where they actually have the ballots.
And that's where they were counting, and this is at that time when we had been told they had stopped counting. They weren't supposed to be counting.
Correct. And the concern was just the security concern. We don't really know what was going on with, or what items they were bringing in, or who was going in, or any of those things. Yeah.
So what is your primary, how does this differ from the normal experience, at where they would count ballots? Do people, right now what we're seeing is people bringing in by themselves with no security, red wagons and Coleman coolers, bringing them behind a glass area where no one has access. How does that differ from how ballot counting should look, or how it usually looks? Because keep in mind, for a lot of people, they've never seen any of this at work.
Well, I would think you could kind of look at how we vote, right? I mean, we go into a polling location. It's very formal. There's a process. We go through. They check your identification. They, validate who you are, verify that you're a person that's eligible to vote, that you're in the right precinct, you're in the right area. So, I would think that if we're going to go through all of those steps to make sure that our voting is protected, that we're doing it properly, you would think that our end result would have the same level of security.
Right.
And we don't see that here. And so the difference is basically they're just letting whoever in with whatever items. They're not verifying any of it. You see the two ladies standing there, but they're not stopping to say, hey, are you even supposed to be here?
Right. And so what would be the risk there of those people walking in with no stop? Here, hold on. We're going to have my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, here come in. What would be the risk of those people right now? They're walking with what appear to be giant, Santa sacks, or they're walking in with pillowcases full of something. We see people walking in with coolers. What, I guess, is your concern? They could be walking in with fake ballots? They could just,
Fake ballots, absolutely. I mean, this is a battleground state. We came up here to Michigan to help Trump, because this is a state that's under fire. This is one that we needed to be monitoring for fraud.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to monitor for fraud when nobody's checking.
Yeah. There really is nobody checking there. And I don't know if someone would argue, well, they're checking once you're past the glass. I don't know if someone would argue that.
They're not. They go in, they roam around, they sit down. I don't know what all goes on.
And so one of the important things here is, and we can raise a good point, is look, maybe somebody's got some sandwiches, maybe someone's got some drinks, but at the very least we have a very clear appearance of a problem. And given how many concerns we've had, particularly in Democrat-controlled jurisdictions, about election security, you imagine that the most heightened election security concerns we've ever had, highlighted for weeks and weeks, on the day of the election in a battleground state, in one of the largest precincts in that battleground state, you have lax security at a time when the ballots are coming in. Now, again, the ballots, it's not like all of a sudden, a million Biden votes happened right after these igloos went in, but rather the very clear that at the least, we've got a lack of security that raises questions about the election itself, and particularly in this jurisdiction. And at the worst, we have people who are without the ability to vet it, who's in there.
Well, this is also listen, as someone who has spent quite a bit of time in Detroit, you have more security at a racquetball court. It's Detroit. You have someone there guarding something. There is nobody checking at all.
Yeah, there's walking in.
And at what time was this? Were these videos taken approximately, Kelly?
That was actually ironically, the issue with Wisconsin came in at shift change. All of that, where you see most of that luggage coming in, is at their shift change at 4:30, 5 in the morning.
Wow. Because you know what? We had to end the stream, was it right about 4 o'clock? Right about 4 o'clock in the morning is when we ended. We wanted to stay here throughout the entire night. And then they said, we are going to reconvene later today and count. And then I took a nap, an hour nap in a hammock. I'm not exaggerating. And I woke up and Michigan had entirely changed. It happened right at that time.
It happened right in front of my eyes, and all I could think was, what the heck? You know, all I saw was all this stuff going in.
Now, what would you say to people who just say, well, that's also because all these votes are just Wayne County, and that's heavily liberal? Would we expect that kind of a turnaround? I mean, there was a huge lead going into, or a big lead at that point by many. What was it? 6 points, Michigan, 8 points at that point before about 4:30 a.m. What would you say to people who would argue that?
So this is actually just kind of an interesting thought, because we thought going into last night,
Turn down the clip.
we were doing great in Michigan. We had been working Michigan.
Right.
All of us spent yesterday, all of the attorneys, we spent roaming around, checking precincts, looking at, we did Detroit, we did the suburbs, we did all the different areas to see how many people were, you know, at the polling locations. And I will tell you that suburbia, loaded. You could tell. People were packed in there. They were busy all day. You go into inner city Detroit, nobody was in there. So we were like, shoot, we got this. Like, yeah, heck yeah, we did good.
Right.
And then you come into this, and it's like, what the heck? All of these absentee ballots pop up, and we're just, okay.
Well, but couldn't it just be that people voted early, and that's what they're finally bringing in? I mean, that's what people would argue, right? Well, these are just early ballots, and they're counting them now, and that's a liberal county.
Well, okay, so another thing, too, is that when I left this morning, they were looking, or right after I left, they announced that they basically were around 16,000 uncounted absentee ballots.
Right.
That's what they were working on. And then by 10 a.m., it jumped to about 30 to 35,000. There was like about a 10-minute gap between 30 and 30.
All the Republican challengers out of this room.
Everybody standing in this area needs to be when I answer any more questions, everybody
from the TCF Center in Detroit, where there's a huge challenge to the ballots that arrived overnight in the city of Detroit in Wayne County. And we have hundreds of people chanting to stop the count. I've been told that President Trump, it's getting louder, President Trump has filed for a lawsuit to stop the count. Here's what's going on in Detroit. I left the GOP office to make photocopies. When we arrived back to TCF Center, we were stopped by security. I was in an elevator, and security wouldn't let the elevator go. And, you know, I just prayed really quick and asked the Lord for some help. And I'm like, sir, Mr. Security Guard, sir, what's the holdup? And I called the office, the GOP office. We have some attorneys, and the attorney said, you let them know that you're on GOP business, that you've got copies that we need to do the job of challenging the poll. And this person called their supervisor. I was able to get up, but there are literally 1,000 people that are poll challengers and poll watchers that have not been allowed in the building. The security guard told me that it was the general manager for the building for TCF, who I happened to track down, and he said, no, it's not the building. It's the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has called, Governor Whitmer has called on the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to come down and shut down the ability for us to be able to challenge these ballots in the city of Detroit. People that have been in this business doing poll challenging for 20 years, you can see over here, this is where it's all going on, have never seen anything like this. The level of the Democratic challengers, the level of harassment is unbelievable. It's divisive. It's ugly. Swearing and intimidation is all part of it. You guys, I don't even have words. So if you pray, now's a really good time. Now's a really good time to pray. So they're just chanting, "Stop the count, stop the count." And we're hoping that they do. I'm going to turn this around and see if I can zoom in for you guys. So you can see under there. I'll see if I can get a better view. Turn it back to me. So if you're a challenger and you leave the room to go to the bathroom, they're not allowing you to come back in. They sent the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to remove only those from the Republican Party. So we do not have equal representation. Apparently the commission, the voters commission, what is it? Try to remember the right term. Has been on site and they aren't doing anything. They're not interceding. We do also know that we had challengers that were actually in saying, "I want to challenge that particular ballot." And the people that are in charge of the specific precinct for that ballot challenge were non-responsive. Again, we have people here that have been poll challengers for decades. And what's going on here is crazy. It's crazy. I'm going to turn it around again so you can see what's going on. So I'm live at the TCF Center in Detroit, Michigan. And it is absolutely our hope that they stop the count, because it is not, it's not being handled correctly. It's not being handled legally. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is locking people out of the building, saying that the building is at capacity. You guys, this is a 40,000 square foot building. I'm standing alone in an area of the building. This building is not at capacity. These are the people that are outside that are being locked out, with the exception of media. Media is being allowed in, which is just crazy. So, again, if you are a praying person, pray big. This is a type of history in the making that I never thought I'd see.
At this time, I'm asking Mr. Daniel Sims to allow these 19 people in so that they can assist with the counting, just as the Democrats are in counting. Now, Mr. Sims has said that there are COVID rules that he cannot break, and therefore he's not allowing these people in. If that is the case, let's take 10 or 12 or 15 Democrats out and let 10 or 12 or 15 or 19 Republicans in. These fine people have been on a rooftop in the sun. They are well-behaved, well-groomed, all cooperative and patient. And they merely want their opportunity to help count and watch the counting. And everyone in this country now knows that overnight, 200,000 votes were suddenly appeared in the city of Detroit. That's a lot of counting. And if there's 19 Democrats down there that are counting, it's only fair that 19, now the number looks to be about 25, should be permitted to go down and count just like the Democrats. So I'm asking you, Mr. Daniel Sims, please allow these Michigan residents to come in at this time. It's now 3:26 p.m. and many of them are up here 2 hours. I called them and I asked them to come up. And they took days out of their working schedule. They took a half day, a day to assist with the democracy of this country. And now they're being told they got to wait on a rooftop because there are COVID rules, and it doesn't make sense. The building is acres and acres. They all have face masks, and if there's 15 or 20 Democrats, then 15 or 20 Republicans should be let in, alternately at least. Exactly. They all have masks on. None of them appears to be sick, and nor have you asked them if they're sick. You could simply ask each one, do you have any COVID symptoms?
No.
Do any of you have any of you been with anyone in COVID that has COVID in the past 24 hours?
No. We are doing the same thing, and we're all downstairs. Why are you having to wait outside?
Well,
You've been here longer than us.
that's right. We have been. This group has been.
They wouldn't let us in. They won't let us in. Now they put cardboard over the windows.
They put cardboard over the windows?
All right.
Not let anybody in.
So, Mr. Danielson, 3 more people have just come in and said they are not being allowed.
I would like to propose that they take a head count, how many Democrats are counting versus how many Republicans. Let's even that up. If there's 300 Democrats, there should be 300 Republicans counting. Then send some of your Democrats out.
Not even down there.
The attorney that was
They've even already counted.
not even Democrats.
They still are not letting even independent people down. Okay.
And then another 135 from
We have no clue how many people
not
are in there.
neither party,
Republican, Democrat,
which
are not
consists of
partisan.
We've watched people leave, and they do not let anyone back in.
They should come out. They should come out. They should come out, and it should be Democrats versus Republicans counting. It should be an even tally. Don't you agree?
Of course. All right, I'm going to end this video now because I want to bring it down to the authorities. And I'm asking you one more time, Mr. Danielson, please let these counters come in. Will you let them in?
Can't.
You can't. Why not?
COVID capacity.
Don't they just make it?
What COVID capacity?
What is capacity? That's not true.
Can you at least radio again and ask your boss?
Who told you not to disclose any information?
Need more information.
Can you at least radio and ask again if
I
anything
can't
has
disclose any
changed?
more information.
See,
I'll be giving my instructions.
were you told not to let this particular group in?
There's 3 people that can go in because us 3 are coming out, so 3 people can go in. How about that?
He hasn't been doing that.
No.
Whoever comes out, he doesn't let people in. We're not keeping track of who's coming and going.
Just like them in counting ballots, they're not keeping track. They have no clue how many people are in there and coming. They have no clue. There's more Democrats in there, I'm going to tell you right now, than Republicans.
That's what we were told.
Mr. Sims, you've mentioned COVID rules. Can you just tell us what COVID rules you're referring to?
No comment.
I'm asking you a third time. Will you let these people in? They've been sitting
As a third, fourth, or fifth time, still, it'll be all the same answer. No comment.
Again, there's 25 people up here on the roof of a building. Would you let them in?
No comment.
The Democrats are not letting us Republicans in, folks.
Yeah, this is
They're also
I'm here
not
with
letting
Black
any
Voices for
independents
Trump,
in.
and they are not letting us in. They're not letting us in, folks. They say that Black lives matter, but Black votes don't matter. Because Trump is winning in Detroit.
Yes, he is.
And you guys are thwarting his efforts in Detroit.
You're right. You're right, brother. You're right. Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Chris Shornack, and it's 8 p.m. I tried to do Facebook Live, don't have a good enough connection. For those that are interested, stay tuned. I'm going to just talk to my friend John. I saw, John, you're trying to log on here. So how is voter fraud happening downtown Detroit at Cobo Hall? in order to understand how it's happening, I'll do my shortest, best explanation, but you need to know how the system works to truly understand it. But there's at least 8,000 votes that are just so skeptical. They're bogus. They're bogus. Those votes should not count. That's ballot harvesting. They just make them up and they shove them in. And I got two things to compare it to. First, I have to tell you this is my opinion. I'm not an attorney, blah, blah, blah. You never know. Because let me tell you, there's people in that building that are hunting for me. They tried to get me arrested. I got dragged out by 3 cops, and when they cleared it up, they found out that it wasn't me, it was them, and they let me back in, and those people were furious, okay? But here's what's happening. First of all, to put it into perspective, here in downtown Detroit, they're only counting the absentee ballots. Another name for absentee is mail-in ballot. So everybody in the city of Detroit who votes by ballot, which is called absentee ballot, they mail in their ballot. Of course, it could be done on the last day, right? And there's about 140,000 absentee ballots, mail-in ballots that were mailed in. They all come to one location, and they're verified. Step one is they verify that ballot is legitimate. And after that, the system is great. It counts it, and rarely is there a problem. It all hinges on, is that a legitimate ballot? And down here, I witnessed with my own eyes I haven't even eaten, it's been 12 hours. I witnessed how it's not. And here's how. Now, yesterday, I was part of the team that counted all the absentee ballots for the city of Royal Oak. Guess how many absentee ballots, mail-in ballots for the city of Royal Oak? I could tell you exactly. It was 25,755. And I got a printout of all of it. How many ballots were bad out of that 25,755 in Royal Oak? This many. Exactly 10. One of them, I could tell you the reason it was bad. They mailed in their absentee ballot and there was no ballot in it. So do you think that ballot should be counted? No, it shouldn't. Why? Because there wasn't even a ballot. It was a bad ballot. And there was only 10 out of 25,755. Just to put things into perspective. How many are bad here in Detroit? Out of the 140,000? At least 8,000. At least 8,000 ballots could not be verified. They couldn't be verified. Here you got a name and you can't verify it. It's not on the electronic log. It's not on the paper log. But they just run it through and they count it. And it's not verified. In Royal Oak yesterday, it was 10. Here in Detroit, we're looking at 8,000. The error rate in Royal Oak was 0.04%. If you do 10 out of 25,755, that's 0.0388. Here in Detroit, we're looking at 8%. Do you think 8% could have an effect on an election? Yeah. And so what specifically is happening? So I voted mail-in, probably like a lot of you. Apparently 70% of the country voted by mail-in. And when you mail it in, it's mailed to me, Chris Shornack, and I'm in a precinct number, and I'll get ballot, say, 758. So there's an electronic record. It's in the voter book that when Chris Shornack's ballot comes in, it should be 758. And all the election workers the paid election workers are getting paid $600 each down here. In Royal Oak, they're paid $250. All the election person does here at the table is they go, look, here's Chris Shornack's ballot. Let's check it on the computer and make sure it's the right number. 768, good. Count that ballot. And then the process goes really, really smooth. But what happens when that ballot comes in here in Detroit and they got Chris Shornack and it says ballot 758 and the computer says, no, he should have ballot 304. Or there's no Chris Shornack in the computer. Well, that's okay, because maybe Chris Shornack just registered to vote on Monday or Tuesday, which you could do in Michigan, as crazy as that sounds. So they have a paper log, and they look in that paper log, and they go, where's Chris Shornack's name? His name's not in the paper log, and it's not in the electronic log. That vote has to be rejected. I'm looking you in the eyes. I'm telling you, I watched it with my own eyes down here. That didn't happen. They would still count that vote. That's called ballot harvesting. That's called an invalid vote. And that, I hope I explained that well, is the voter fraud that's happening here in Detroit. It's crazy. It's insane. So each counting board, there's 140 counting boards in there. Really, I think there's 138. So don't say, oh, Chris, you're wrong. There's only 138 and there's 140. I'm trying to make the numbers easy and comprehensible to understand, like, how is it happening? By the way, when I say 8%, that's just like on the low end. That's what I observed, because whenever we would, us poll challengers, we would try to challenge that vote. I've never been treated so bad. They just make up lies. Two ladies said, he threatened me. He threatened to shoot me. He threatened to shoot me. And here's what I said. I'm standing there saying, hey, that ballot doesn't match, and I would like to challenge that ballot. And it's real easy to challenge. All they do is they put an electronic note. They go click on the computer, and they go, this ballot is being challenged as not valid. That's it. This ballot is being challenged as invalid. And then I write it up and I turn in my form, and they've got it in their computer system. They refused to do that. They refused to do that. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't refuse to do that. And we're not picking on the poll workers. They're just doing their job. They're just doing their job. And listen, there's going to be a very small percent come in that need to be rectified and finished, but ultimately some of them aren't good enough and can't make it. So these lady goes, well, I say you can't challenge. I said you can. And so I said, listen, I have a Second Amendment right to speak just like you do. Second Amendment, what, are you threatening to shoot me? I said, I'm sorry, I meant First Amendment right to speak. And so they go get 3 police officers, and they come over and they sequester and arrest me. And then we talk it out, and the police officers roll their eyes and let me go back in. But I mean, these are dirty, filthy Democrats. Are all Democrats dirty and filthy? No. The ones in there, filthy, dirty. And you could talk to 100 other poll workers like me. I'm not even registered, as went in with the nonpartisan Thomas More Law Society, and they're giving me hell. They're like, how dare you challenge anything? And half of those people in there don't even know how the election process works. It's a good process, folks. It's not complicated. People who like systems, checks and balances, has a really good system. But the gatekeeper is, you don't go past the gate unless you can verify that ballot. And I'm telling you, there's at least 8,000 ballots that are not verifiable, and they're just...
This wasn't enough. In Antrim County, ballots were counted for Democrats that were meant for Republicans, causing a 6,000 vote swing against our candidates. The county clerk came forward and said, tabulating software glitched and caused a miscalculation of the votes. Since then, we have now discovered that 47 counties use this same software in the same capacity. Antrim County had to hand count all of the ballots, and these counties that use this software need to closely examine their results for similar discrepancies. The people of Michigan deserve a transparent and open process. All this wasn't enough. In Antrim,
you're a well-known lawyer. You're the president's lawyer. You haven't provided any evidence.
I appreciate you being here today. Let me just give you one concrete example, not anecdotal, but concrete example of what we believe to be valid voter fraud in the state of Pennsylvania. I draw your attention to an obituary listed for one Denise Ondish in Allegheny County, born 9/10/1946, deceased 10/22/2020. Her application to vote was received on 10/23, the day after she died. It was then mailed by the county back to her on 10/24/2020, 2 days after she had legally passed away, and the ballot was then received back at the county office on November 2nd, 2020. And when you go to the Secretary of State's website today, it says that she voted in this election, effective November 2nd, 2020, a full 9 days after Miss Ondish of Allegheny County passed away. This is not, this is not empirical, this is not anecdotal. This is hard evidence, and if you do your jobs from the media, I'm sure you'll find additional examples, and this will be one of many that we will be filing with the court. Thank you very much.
The postal inspector contacted you today in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
They asked me the same questions you asked me yesterday about what I'd seen and what I'd heard, and were asking if I had any more information or whatnot.
You witnessed your supervisor backdating a ballot to November 3rd?
I did not witness them backdating it. I witnessed them talking about backdating.
What did you hear them say?
They were talking about how the day before, which was the 4th, they had postdated all but one of the ballots that were picked up as the 3rd, but they had one that they made a mistake and postmarked it the 4th.
You heard Robert Weisenbacher say this to Daryl, or Daryl say it? How did you hear it?
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Yes.
They made a mistake on the ballot, and they should have backdated the November 4th ballot to November 3rd, correct?
Yes.
And you heard this, and since you did the interview with me in the shadows, what has happened to you at your employment? They were taking an action against you today?
Well, I'm not for sure, but they are bringing up stuff that happened like in the past.
So they brought up old allegations against you today that were already adjudicated, and they brought those up today?
Yes.
These inspectors have. What was the nature of your conversation with the post office officials that reached out to you today about our interview?
They said that I was. Well, because of certain factors, I was kind of implicated as the one who had came out. So they wanted to get my side of the story because they wanted to start an investigation into this. I think this comes from above them, and that's what I told the postal inspectors. I just think they were just doing what they're told. And, yeah.
This lady is marking the ballots. I filmed her a half hour ago doing 6, and she's still working at it. Let's stamp it, received, and let's fill in our 6 blanks. All at the top of the tickets on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And this guy keeps looking at her but does nothing.
6. And there's a security guard right there who's watching her. The cops are in on it.
Okay, so as you can see, they're stamping received, and then they're filling in the little circles on the ballot. One thing that somebody has said is, well, if maybe an elderly person tried filling it out and they didn't get it right in the circle or whatever, we can, redo it for them so that way their vote still counts and it's not thrown out unnecessarily. However, if you notice, they're not referring to anything. They're not referring to another ballot that was, that they're correcting. They're just filling out ballots.
See something funny, or at least interesting? Check this out. Google Trends, election fraud punishment, search trends, right? Look at the states. I mean, look at them. Now look at the dates. Keep in mind, this is people looking up election fraud punishment out of curiosity, just randomly. You have spikes in October, September, and August. This is people looking up the punishment for election fraud, for committing election fraud. And it always happens right around election time. See something funny? Or at least interesting? Check this out. Google Trends, election fraud punishment.